for a higher juicy news. Mima Obibia Aquaba latest hot and kwa Aremeyaw bro. Now sana as something in a bebaro. So we subscribe ya bomodi say over subscribe. Now while I give video don't give us a thumbs up, not fee share now wo fufrosu. Now we be here now and someone ekoso ewo Ghana me mohano. Afi yem share a year and someone abeto yeponoso. Inti a year some kumu a year sansemoya babitu ya moma inti dia ekoso inti zemono.
So when I come here and I'm angry, this morning I'm not happy at all.
So these are the effects of
Akufo Addo's administration. Take it from me. Take it from me. And that is why recently when President Akufo said now he has seen the light, now he's ready to voice out the sins of the other administration. Why did you keep so long in coming out?
I don't understand.
It took so long.
President Akufo.
If he had spoken earlier enough, all these Sandra Frempong and Joseph Opata and the likes would have gotten jobs. He would have saved the nation by preventing them in investing in homes, in investing in SML, in investing in BDS, in investing in all manner of things. Look at what happened at the National Service. We asked them to go to school. They have gone to school. They have become nurses. Essential service providers.
Now the government is inheriting 50,000 unemployed.
Can you imagine? These are matters that must agitate our minds and TV3. Let me congratulate you for what you have done this morning. I'm telling you, when I was coming and scanning through various homes and other places, their stations were here. They were listening with rapt attention. Those students in schools who are also pursuing nursing programs, their hearts are bleaking and bleaching and bleeding.
In 2020, Asante Bediatuo was the Minister of Trade and Industry. He was in charge of 1D1P. 1D1F. 1D1F.
Okay.
How many people did he employ? What did he do? You see that and make it look like Annan was innocent. Annan was the one in charge of running this. How many people did he employ? How many people did he employ?
Because of your
you make it look like where was Annan? He was sleeping on the job. He didn't employ this person. And now all of a sudden you are here saying that Akufo Addo. What about Annan? Where was Annan? He was the minister in charge of
this. He used it on darko. He said he was paying people some money.
When you were talking, I allowed you to talk. So Annan was in charge of 1D1.
But what did the MPP then do? Because the quality was so high, they gave compelling arguments in Parliament.
You mean J.H. They
gave compelling arguments that when they stood on the floor of Parliament and spoke, the entire country came to a standstill.
Yeah, I'm saying Solomon just called minority MPs of unsound minds.
No, but that's the constitution. That's
what I'm saying. Just called them all minority MPs of unsound minds. On October 23rd, 2024,
have you not had your chance?
NDC MPs did a similar thing. Did you call them unsound minds?
Why are you trying?
I'm saying that
why are you trying?
No. Call minority MPs people with unsound minds.
No.
I mean,
we should why are you doing that?
Okay.
We should have decorum in our public discourse.
I took you. I walked you through the constitution.
Mr. Solomon, the argument Dr. Zaato is making is that the allusions you make, you start from the quotation as well as the provisions that...
It's the provisions in the constitution.
Article 42, you start from...
No, you are wrong to say that they don't have sound mind.
I don't know when they appointed as the Minister of Rights for him to tell them that. How did you you have absolutely no business to say that they are sound minds.
Okay.
If you don't like their tactics, you can say you don't like their tactics. Okay. If you don't like their tactics, you don't like that. But to then insinuate or suggest that they are sound minds, it's unfair. It's not something we should be saying on national TV. We shouldn't be saying that.
I came here and I'm repeating it. The Constitution and
because you start from 42 and then you go to
the Constitution itself says that
94.
The Electoral Commission must register people of sound mind. Did I write that?
What's your own analysis of it so far? The supposition that there was violence and so is begetting the violence that we're seeing there. And the violence has not been instigated by the majority side, really clearly. The minority side came to the House to deal with a subject matter because a decision has been taken due to a communication that the Speaker has received. And the Speaker is thinking, I'm backed by law, and so rightly, I'm taking that decision.
Roland, there is no violence begetting any violence anywhere.
You sure?
It is a figment of the imagination of the opposition New Patriotic Party. And here, let's distinguish between a responsible opposition and irresponsible opposition. Remember, the United Party is also in opposition, and that is why I always want us to, they will box all of us together and think that we agree with what they are doing, when in fact they are just being destructive. They are just trying to draw back the forward march of this country. Roland, my difficulty this morning is with the Daily Graphic, how they gave this despicable act prominence on their front page. And I see chaos in Parliament when there is an important story. See how they captured it in a small corner. Ghana loses $3 billion annually to corruption.
Why is that?
You give this story a small position or small font and give this village life attitude in Parliament this big headline. I have scanned through the standing orders of Parliament. Parliamentarians only need 2 documents: the Constitution and the standing orders. Scanning through from page 1 to the last page, there is nowhere that the actions of these so-called minority are approved or is approved. So what rule, based on what rule or standing order or constitutional provision did they do what they did? But you see, I don't blame them. I don't blame these parliamentarians. But I blame 2 set of people in this country for what they did.
Who are the people?
I blame the voters who killed at dawn, and in spite of the fact that Article 42 says that the Electoral Commission must register people with sound mind.
Oh.
And this is what the Constitution is saying. Article 42. You have your Constitution, go there, let's see.
Every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purpose of public elections and referenda. What has that got to do?
Yeah, so first of all, those that are supposed to go and vote must have sound mind. And go to Article 93 too. And I always come here and emphasize on sound mind. Sound mind, you don't understand me. Article 93 too.
There shall be a parliament of Ghana which shall consist of not less than...
No, go to 94. 94 too. 94 too. Please, 94.
94 too.
Yes.
Okay. Subject to the provisions of this article, a person shall not be qualified to be a member of parliament
if he... A and B. Read the B for me.
94 too.
Yes, 94 2B.
If he has been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in Ghana.
And the second one?
To be of sound...
To be of what?
Mind.
Unsound. You cannot be...
To be of an unsound mind.
If you cannot be in parliament, if you have unsound mind... Did I write the constitution for this country?
No, what do you mean? What's the correlation between the chaos in parliament and your argument?
To be of sound mind means you must cooperate, behave within the confines of the standing orders of parliament.
Oh, solo.
And the constitution. So anything you do outside the standing orders of parliament makes you behave as someone of unsound mind. And the Constitution says that that person must not be in parliament. So what TV3 is supposed to do is to project the list, all the faces of the minority MPs that took part in this despicable act, and so that Ghanaians in the next election will do us the greatest honor by voting all of them out. Because they know it's a despicable act. You saw them putting on face masks. Has Ghana not been declared COVID-free? When last did they go to parliament and they were wearing face masks?
Oh, solo.
They decided to wear it because they themselves know. And my difficulty is that the few hot-headed ones have been able to push the reasonable ones to also join the fray. And what even annoys me and saddens my heart is that the women have also joined. I saw the women banging. The women from the minority banging. Some of them are known to be very respectable.
No, but Solomon, if you're in parliament, all parliaments over the world, there are means
there is no parliament. Look, we have serious matters.
There are
this
means
morning,
of protest. And so,
what protest is this? That you want to disrupt the consideration of estimates. Remember what they were doing yesterday? What were you doing yesterday? Why are you not considering estimates of various ministries and agencies? You have just interviewed unemployed graduate nurses this morning. These nurses need these estimates to be approved so that the economy will be expanded for them to be absorbed. Then you have parliamentarians who are supposed to make sure that these works go there and say that they are disrupting it. I've listened to a number of them. What they have told me is that, or what they have said to the entire world is that because they did not have the numbers, they will only disrupt parliamentary business. Now, let me tell you something. This situation we find ourselves, this is not the first time the country is getting such a huge disparity between majority and minority. In 1996, the NPP, they had 67 seats. The NPP had 133 seats in parliament. It's not the same. It's like half of it. But what did the NPP then do? Because the quality was so high, they gave compelling arguments in parliament.
You mean They gave
compelling arguments that when they stood on the floor of parliament and spoke, the entire country came to a standstill.
Yeah, I'm saying Solomon just called minority MPs of unsound minds.
No, but that's the constitution. That's what I'm saying.
Just called them all minority MPs of unsound
minds. Why is it coming?
On October 23rd, 2024,
have you not had your chance? Have you not?
did a similar thing. Did you call them unsound minds?
Why are you trying?
I'm saying that
why are you trying?
No.
And call minority MPs people with unsound minds.
No.
I mean,
no.
We should
why
have
are you doing that?
Okay.
We should have some decorum in our public discourse.
I took you. I walked you through the constitution.
Mr. Solomon, the argument Dr. Zaato is making is that the allusions you make, you start from the quotation as well as the provisions that...
It's the provisions in the constitution.
Article 42, you start from...
No, you are wrong to say that they don't have sound mind.
I don't know when they appointed as the Minister of Rights for him to tell them that. How did you you have absolutely no business to say that they are sound minds.
Okay.
If you don't like their tactics, you can say you don't like their tactics. Okay. If you don't like their tactics, you don't like that. But to then insinuate or suggest that they are sound minds, it's unfair. It's not something we should be saying on national TV. We shouldn't be saying that.
I came here and I'm repeating it. The Constitution and
because you start from 42 and then you go to
the Constitution itself says that
94
the Electoral Commission must register people of sound mind. Did I write that? Now I come to 94 to BIN. That nobody must enter the chamber of parliament unless you have sound mind. Did I write it?
No, I'm saying that.
Now, why? What is the point?
There is evidence of NDC MPs who did worse things. Nobody called them on sound mind. So please, don't call people on sound mind because you don't like their tactics. Don't call people on sound mind because you don't like their approach. Our public discourse can be civil and respectful.
Tell them to remove it from the Constitution.
You've made your
point. This business of trying to always play the victim.
I'm not playing a victim. I'm simply saying let's elevate our public discourse.
No, it's one of the strategies. He wants to come and curtail my thoughts, but I will be focused and deliver on what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
So the first group of people...
Dr. Zaato, you've made your point.
But you have to do debit and credit. You have to give us the time that you're taking from me and then make sure that I finish my point.
If you debit, you credit.
So what I'm saying is that it is so clear.
It says that allusion should not be part of a national discourse.
That don't sound mind.
You should retract it.
I should remove it from the Constitution. Is that what you're telling me? The Constitution has written on sound mind. Did I write it? You read it for me. We are doing analysis. The Constitution enjoins every Ghanaian to vote for someone who is of sound mind to go to Parliament and represent us. And I'm saying that when you go to Parliament, they have two set of documents.
So I asked the question that the means that they undertook yesterday is part of protest.
No, which part of the standing orders?
It's not there.
So
which has been exhibited by some parliament.
So in the past, if it took place, also for some people that didn't have sound mind, because you see, we are in an era where you just interviewed 2 unemployed graduate nurses. The lady Sandra Frimpong was crying on set. After the show, I met her here. She continues to cry. Why? She has finished school. Now we put people in parliament to go and better the lives of these people. They go and do otherwise, something that is not contained in the standing orders, and you come and sit here and tell me that we must be civil. You see, this civility, when you don't say it as it is, the people want to deal with that. Now, the first set of people that I'm blaming this morning is the voters that voted for these people. The second set of people, or the second person I'm blaming is Speaker Babin. You remember on the 31st of January 2025, this year, you You were in this studio when we discussed that matter of destruction of microphones and tables and chairs by these same parliamentarians. So when I'm discussing something, that you come and sit here, that you have to say, well, when those days, I have not invited the wife.
Continue, please.
You have BPO if you don't take care. You were here when I said that if the Speaker of Parliament does not punish that act, it will lead to more things happening. You thought I was joking. What have you experienced? When the Speaker of Parliament promised the entire country that he was going to make sure that parliamentarians that took part in that act, their salaries were going to be deducted to pay for the microphones and chairs, have you heard anything about it? So it has emboldened them to continue to do what they did yesterday. In fact, yesterday, all that they were pushing for was to repeat what happened on the 31st of January. In fact, I saw some of the MPs throwing papers around. So if they have been given the opportunity,
You mean this incident?
Exactly. What happened to
so the Speaker's failure to take action?
That is what has led to the second one, yesterday's one. And when you see such an act, look, someone who has been voted for MP, look at that.
Roland, I beg you. There's
Look at
another
that.
video on October
and you call this out, mine?
2024.
What are you talking about?
Can you put it up?
Dr. Zaato, stop being disruptive.
He has disrupted me the whole day. This morning, what is that?
Stop being disruptive. Let's give each opportunity
okay,
that
I
is.
No, he has taken about 6 minutes of my time.
Okay,
Why?
you go.
Now back to
Please,
the issue.
you have 3 minutes left.
Oh, my brother, why are you trying to show you are MPP with him? You'll be MPP with him. The United Party remains focused. We want to shape the destiny of this country. Now, back to the issue. Why is the MPP afraid to go for the rerun? That is where the matter is. As you speak.
You think they are afraid to go?
No, they are afraid. They have given
Martin Yinda had in excess 3,000 votes. He has no fear to enter into another election to make sure that he recaptures his seat.
I have watched.
At least that's what he's been
I have
communicating.
watched his interviews after his removal from Parliament, Martin Yinda, and he has given up. Now he's referring to the fact that he's from Kumdi, a poor farming community in the Pandai area, and he had not been in Parliament, it was by grace, and that whatever happens, life goes on. He has already given up. He has given up because if indeed he won that election, I have no reason to say that he didn't win. But if I were him and I won by that margin, 3,700 votes, and you know that with MP elections, a simple win, you can get one and win. We have had Titus Glover win with even 3. Is that not the case? So if you led by 3,700, just go and fight. You can even win by a single vote, and you'll be the MP. Yet you are running away, hiding behind the MPs in Parliament who are also not doing anything. They don't wish Nyinam well. They are only making noise so that Nyinam will know that, oh, when he came, they fought. They are not fighting. As they claim they are fighting, you Nyinam, you are out. I have advised him that he should not invest any money. The small money that is left with him, he must save it. Because I am fully aware that the people in Pandai think otherwise. But I wait for the election outcome. So let them go back and take part in this. But the problem is that the party is not united. The MPP is not united. So who is going to lead the campaign? They claim that Dr. Mahamadu Bawumia has said that any election in the northern regions, he would deliver the vote to the MPP. So the Brian faction, the Kennedy faction, the Net2 faction, the Kwabena Agyapong faction are saying that you that have promised the party that any election you would deliver the Northern votes, the Muslim votes. This time, this is a test case. If you say you are macho, go and break the equal. There used to be an advert like that. Say if you claim you are macho, break the equal. Go and break the equal in Pandai and deliver the Northern votes. That is where the challenge is. But what has destroyed matters is what recently the former President Agyarko said. He has told the entire country that indeed some of the decisions, the majority of the decisions of the Akufo Addo Bawumia administration was so worse off.
Oh, he only said that PDS and someone he didn't treat them well.
DDP, banking sector cleaner. As for the cathedral, I didn't even want to hear. So how can you take such a decision? So this is what the people of Pandai have listened to. Former President Akufo has rather done the campaign for those that are going to contest. So how do you expect Nyinam to win? Oh. Having the benefit of the doubt that somebody used our money to go and dig a hole, which has been echoed by President Akufo. How do you expect the voters in Pandai to go and vote for Ninam? So the party itself, through its leadership, founding fathers, people of stature, have done the campaign for the other side. The only lack the NDC has is that the United Party is going to take part in this election. We would have won in handsomely and Ghana would have been saved.
Solomon, are you sure about that? You experienced that. Your colleagues in the House, they were in black. You are in white, though. But that aside, do you think that that should be the posture of the minority in relation to the subject matter of any protest at all regarding the decision by the court that there has to be a rerun for the Pandai seat?
First of all, they are not my colleagues. I'm not an MP.
Okay.
So they are not my colleagues.
All right.
I don't know them. Secondly, I'm surprised people are just looking at this without looking at how we got here. It was violence that brought us to this violence. Violence begets...
You're saying we're being myopic?
I'm saying violence begets violence. It was violence that created the Pandai problem.
What violence? What do you mean by that? Please posit your argument. What do you mean by violence got us here?
Violence begets violence. We are talking, this Pandai issue arose as a result of what? Violence. When they were doing the coalition in Pandai, it was the NDC, I have the video we can play it, who sent pickups with their people to go and disrupt that counting with violence.
You mean your video?
Yeah, there are videos out there of the NDC going in pickups to disrupt the counting. It was that violence.
And the MPP videos, do you have them?
No, you have them. Maybe you can also.
No, I don't have any of the videos.
No, I'm telling you, I've seen videos. I've seen videos of people in NDC pickups who have gone there to vandalize it. I've seen it.
Okay.
It's on social media.
But I'm asking, do you have the MPP side?
I've told you what I have. If you also have the MPP ones, you can also talk about it. I'm only telling you what I have.
I don't have any videos.
So good. So I'm telling you what I have. You're asking me what you have other ones to know. I'm just telling you this is what I have.
Okay.
What I have or what I've seen is people in NDC pickups who went to the center, disrupted the voting through violence. One, it was the violence that necessitated the transfer, the EC to take those boxes to Tamale to count. And it was that action that led to the law, the suit at the court, and it was that suit that nullified the voting. So it started with violence. So I'm surprised that people are being hypocritical. No, we didn't come here. No, it's violence. It was the violence of the people that led to what? The court case, and that brought us here. So one, you must understand that. I sat here last week and he said that if Pandai stands, we are glorifying violence, electoral violence. If Pandai stands, people will begin to game systems. And I've said it's very simple. Look, he's a member of parliament. He can tell you, by the time, if you give literally 1 hour, 2 hours after the voting, he knows whether he was winning or not. Even before you go to the coalition center. Because these days, everybody is collating their centers from the polling stations. So by the time they bring all of them there, you know your stand even before you go to the coalition center.
I don't understand.
What I'm saying is that if you have 10 polling stations
I'm asking you this question because we've had seats that were in contention.
I know.
And then they were reversed. Because they are pink sheets that people could not verify. They were even just soft copies, etc. And we've seen them. That's the reason why we had pockets of incidents, of course, violence. That characterized the last election. And that's why those incidents were recorded.
Good. So again, by the time we are going to the coalition centers, almost every candidate knows your standing. So that is why the incidence of ballot box snatching has reduced drastically, whilst we are now seeing a new rise in the storming of our coalition centers. The storming of coalition centers seems to be because that is where people now think that let's prevent the coalition. Now, my point is that if Pandai stands, and it says that it is going to incentivize the storming of coalition centers going forward. If Pandai stands, violence is going to be used because all you need to know is, okay, I'm losing this election, so let me storm the polling station and see whether I can stop the election. And then give me the system. If Pandai stands, people are going to use it to game the system. People are going to use it as a test case of how to what?
How are they going to use it to game the system?
I've explained. They will simply know, losing candidates will just know, okay, if I'm able to disrupt the coalition and make sure that materials are destroyed, then it may go to what? An election. If it goes to an election 50-50.
You mean a rerun?
A rerun. If it's going to be 50-50. Now, that's what I'm saying, that we have to make sure that Pandai doesn't become the standard for that. Even if both political parties have used it, if the MPP has used it in the past, if the NDC has used it in the past, it's about time we begin to say, no, we should not make violence win. If Pandai stands, violence has win. If Pandai stands, hooliganism has win. If Pandai stands, party vigilantism has won. Sorry. We should stop that so that we are able to have a system, the will of the people done. Secondly, I believe that Parliament should have or could have handled this way better. Because the minority in Parliament seems to be of the view that there is a rush or there's a hurry to declare the seat and declare a re-election. The majority seems to think that they are only just doing or implementing the law. I think there's a middle ground somewhere. And some of these middle grounds are not things that you have to discuss on the floor of Parliament or even the Parliament. Parliament sits, is it in the evening or in the afternoons?
In the afternoons.
In the afternoons. So the whole period from the morning to the afternoon provided an avenue, should have provided an avenue for cooler heads to emerge, for cooler heads to state and say, look, what are we going to do about this? Because see, with the moment you should have known, or you ought to have known, that the moment the clerk sends a letter, there were going to be reactions. You ought to know, should have known that the moment the clerk sends a letter saying that they are declaring this, and especially...
But the clerk has been communicated to. And within the standing orders of Parliament, if Parliament is notified through the office of the Speaker, the Speaker has the discretion to act based on that standing.
I'm not questioning that. I'm only saying that...
But you are saying that the action that has been taken is creating a problem.
All I'm saying is that you ought to have known that the moment you send that letter, it was going to create some problems. You ought to have anticipated it. Anticipating means that you could have then used methods, processes. Before even the House convenes, leadership could have started meeting with the clerk, meeting with the Speaker, to try to find an amicable solution before you go to the floor. This is a failure of leadership in both sides of the House. The fact that you carried this issue to the floor, now on the floor, it was not only law, it was also emotions, and that is why we saw the chaos. This chaos could have been prevented if the leadership had done a good job of mediating, of talking, and of having these things done. I am beginning to understand that and try to see that, look, this Parliament is not going to go smooth as possible. Even when we had 50-50 House, it went a little bit smooth. And even when we had a majority, it's going to smoother. Ghanaians now have an opportunity to ask themselves some very important questions. We've had parliaments where the governing party has had a majority, let me say a ruling majority, but not overwhelming majority. We criticize those parliaments. We said they were rubber stamps. God has been good to us. We've had a split parliament in the last parliament. Then we said, well, sometimes we said it's still government business. We said, and there are people who say that the split government did not inure to our benefit the way we want to be. Now we have another extreme parliament where we have about 2/3 with the government. At the end of the day, I think Ghanaians are going to ask themselves, which model better serves us? At the end of the day, governance is going to ask ourselves, how did we get here and which one of them? Because I believe that when you have too much power, and that power corrupts, and absolute power will always corrupt. And that's my belief, that we ought to find a good balance to give a ruling government a majority in Parliament, a ruling majority in Parliament. But then we also have to find ourselves, how do we make sure that the opposition or the minority doesn't feel bullied, doesn't feel intimidated, doesn't feel harassed? Because the current opposition, the current minority is making it very clear. Our numbers are small, but we shall not be bullied, we shall not be intimidated, we shall not be harassed.
Okay, so your numbers are small. Does it then make you draw the conclusion that it's the fault of the majority? And so because you have smaller numbers, you feel small, and so you feel you're being bullied? Is that the impression you get?
Which numbers? I'm just telling you something, I don't have numbers. Again,
no,
I'm
just narrating from the point of the minority that they feel bullied.
No, I'm not.
That
I'm not narrating from the point of minority. I'm just making the general analysis.
Yes.
My general analysis is that.
I'm not saying you are in the minority.
I'm not saying you said I am. I'm just telling you that. You asked me a question, I'm just explaining. My explaining is that I'm explaining from my experience. I'm saying, look, we've had now 3 types of government, of parliaments. One where the ruling has a governing majority in the House. big enough to do their things without them. Once where there's a split, we've had that one too, and now we have another extreme one where you can say we don't even the majority doesn't even need a minority. At the end of the day, the Ghanaian people who are the ultimate custodian of this country are going to ask themselves, which of these types of parliaments gave us value for our money? Which type of these parliaments did it better for us? And then they are going to decide in the next election and subsequent elections. That's the general argument I'm making, because I'm saying that if they are a minority, any minority anywhere in the world feels that they are being harassed, intimidated, they are going to fight back. And then this scene we have seen, if we don't find a way to make things work, this is not going to be the last time we're going to see this thing. So Ghanaians should cheer up. Ghanaians should get ready for more scenes like this, because the minority is going to always want to.
So there should be chaos because they are small numbers.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Well, I can only tell you what I saw or what happened within the chamber. I think we walked in, proceedings started, I think, immediately after 12. And then usually we start with the prayer. Then when the prayer was said and business was about to start, then the minority chief whip, Honorable Dompre, got up and said he had an urgent statement to make and that he was praying for a variation of the business for the day to allow him to make the statement. Well, that was granted him. And the statement was to the effect that the majority took a strong position against the decision by the Clerk of Parliament, and if you like, by extension, the Speaker of Parliament, to notify the EC of the vacancy that had occurred. Because according to them, there was an appeal pending and that there was a stay process that was also pending. And so to their understanding, everything should have been stayed until at least the state proceedings was heard. And so they didn't take, they felt, no, they would also allow government business to be conducted. You know, we had serious businesses yesterday. We had a number of papers to be laid in view of the estimates from the budget that was presented, the sectorial estimates. And so they said they would not give a badge. We did everything. The speaker, the one who was presiding at the time was the first deputy speaker. He did everything he could.
That's Bernard Anyafo.
That was Bernard Anyafo. He did everything he could, and it was not working. So he had to suspend sitting for some time, and then later we had Speaker himself coming in. Still, it was the same thing. And even degenerated. Speaker also had to suspend sitting. But government business also had to be conducted, because remember, budget approval also goes with timelines. And the Parliament also has a session. We needed to finish it within a specified timeline. And so it became very nasty, really, really nasty, because at some point they had to even move. They moved from their seats. And and usually
they came towards your side.
Yeah, they came to the middle, and then they went all the way to the maze. And the maze is the authority of Parliament. In fact, anything you can do anything in Parliament, but you don't get closer to the maze, because that is the symbol of authority of Parliament. Once the maze is taken away, then there's no Parliament. And so if you realize, at some point, the marshal had to position themselves. There were two of them positioned just by the maze, because the maze symbolizes a lot. But the whole thing degenerated, but thank God, you see, even in the midst of all that, government business was carried out.
Yes. So why was that decision made then, that irrespective of the chaos that the minority was undertaking or perpetrating, you still went ahead? I saw the majority leader also.
You see, we didn't want to give blessing to that action.
The posture.
Yes. You see, we have rules that govern our procedure. And if you are aggrieved by anything, there are ways to come by it. One was the statement you asked for leave to make, which was granted you. So you made that statement. And see, if you make a statement like that, the other side must be given the chance to respond. Now you make the statement, and you are saying that you will not sit down and allow the majority side to respond. Then where lies the democracy we practice here? In fact, even in court, you say you are in court. You are in court because you want to be heard. You understand? If you want to be heard, then that right you have to be heard, you should also understand that the other party equally has the right to be heard. And so you get up and make a statement, and you are saying that the other side should not be allowed to make a statement. So that was where the problem came. And so Speaker had no choice, because Speaker had to go by the rules. Speaker cannot also jettison the rules simply because you are saying that should not be done. Otherwise, tomorrow, anybody can get up and circumvent or subvert the rules of parliament by just being chaotic. And so in the midst of the chaos, we still found ways to do business. In fact, the first thing that was done was to allow the majority leader to respond to what had been, the statement that had been made by the minority chief whip. And then after he made that, they resumed straight into the business. And that was when it became chaotic. In fact, the main objective of yesterday, their action, was just to frustrate government business. And that they will want to make their case, but the other side should not be allowed to make any case of theirs. And that, as far as they are concerned, no government business will be conducted. And we still have to find a way to do it. And in the end, Roland, we were able to execute whatever agenda. In fact, we even did it in a faster way than we would have normally done it. You know, usually when those papers are lead, their comments are allowed, it generates some debates. So every sector, for instance, trade ministry will have to lay estimates, the report from the committee, and then members are allowed to debate, bring out all the issues. You see, Ghanaians were deprived of this opportunity. Because so, as we speak, yesterday, in fact, trade ministry was dealt with, tourism was dealt with, communication was dealt with, youth and sport.
So you were able to virtually
we did all those things. And the Ghanaian public were deprived of the opportunity to know what was contained in these estimates. And see, so but for their actions, Ghanaians would have known what is it in the budget of the Ministry for Trade that they should be aware of. You understand? And that is, they will point out, once a party brings a budget, a government brings a budget to Parliament, it is the other side that can bring out the ills in the budget. You understand? And let the public know about it. But the moment you take to chaos, the more you take to this kind of behavior, you don't only deprive yourself from criticizing the budget, but you deprive the entirety of Ghanaians. You betray the trust Ghanaians have in you by making you the opposition to see to it that you point out the ills in this budget. And so yesterday, we had most of these estimates went through successfully without the public getting to hear about it. And we would have been deprived of some of the issues that would have come out of it. You understand? And so in the end, I don't think they did not achieve the objective they set for themselves. They only ended up making our parliament look even bad in the eye of the public. In fact, we look at this. We almost, blows were almost being exchanged. This is not a scene we want the public out there to see. International community is watching. This is a critical moment, a moment we are debating the budget. And so all eyes are on Parliament. This is the least we can give to the public. And it was sad. It was very unfortunate.
Abdul Fattah Al-Hassan, he is a member of Parliament for Yende with the first word. And
unemployed graduate nurses is heartbreaking, heart-wrenching.
They were not employed. 50,000
50,000 of them.
That's what the current Minister of Health has inherited.
And they finished school 2020, 2021. That was the period
2020.
that Nana Akufo Addo was digging the hole. You remember? So when I come here and I'm angry, this morning I'm not happy at all.
So these are the effects of
the effects of Nana Akufo Addo's administration. Take it from me. Take it from me. And that is why recently when President Akufo said now he has seen the light, now he's ready to voice out the sins of the other administration. Why did you keep so long in coming out?
I don't understand.
He took so long.
President Akufo.
If he had spoken earlier enough, all these Sandra Frimpong and Joseph Opata and the likes would have gotten jobs. He would have saved the nation by preventing them in investing in holes, in investing in SML, in investing in BDS, in investing in all manner of things. Look at what happened at the National Service. We asked them to go to school. They have gone to school. They have become nurses. Essential service providers.
Now the government is inheriting 50,000 unemployed.
Can you imagine? These are matters that must agitate our minds and TV3. Let me congratulate you for what you have done this morning. I'm telling you, when I was coming and scanning through various homes and other places, their stations were here. They were listening with rapt attention. Those students in schools who are also pursuing nursing programs, their hearts are bleaking and bleaching and bleeding, because they don't know what the future holds for them. These are the issues that the country must confront. But I want to entreat this administration to be serious with them. They have to go heaven and earth and turn things around and get them absorbed into the system so that they can work.
The 50,000 that Akando has inherited.
The problem is that they have left it. That is why we keep saying that when the Ghanaian is voting, they must look at the caliber of people they vote for. If this administration cannot...
They passed through Kweku Annan.
Agyapong has gone bananas. You have got to mention his name. The man said he was not thinking straight. When COVID rose, how was he going to employ? How was he going to employ these people when he himself had told us that he was not thinking straight? Your Minister of Health, who is supposed to be healthy and be leading this country into redemption, said he was not thinking straight. So how was he going to find a way by way of policy to get all these people employed? That's the problem you have been confronted with as a nation. So it's a sad morning. It's a Black Wednesday, and I am not happy. But I can only wish them well and hope that if this administration is unable to do it, the united party under the able leadership of Mr. Kyeremanteng will do it. And mind you, next week on the 16th of December, I'm inviting you and TV3. The journey to the redemption of the African continent will begin. There will be an African summit here that will be spearheaded by Mr. Kyeremanteng. It's not about talk. It is about time Africa makes a point. We begin the implementation process, and Mr. Kyeremanteng will lead that onslaught. Heads of states are going to come. We will make a determination in Accra as to the way forward.
I see.
Can I say something to what he said?
On the 50,000 inherited by the current administration.
And on yes. You see, it's an issue about unemployment, and it's true that we should all sympathize and empathize with what they are doing. But you see, sometimes this is what we do. This is the dishonesty in the discussion that Solomon is doing here. In 2020, Kyeremanteng was the Minister of Trade and Industry. He was in charge of 1D1P. 1D1F. 1D1F.
Okay.
How many people did he employ? What did he do? You see that and make it look like Annan was innocent. Annan was the one in charge of running this. How many people did he employ? How many people did he employ?
Because of your
you make it look like where was Annan? He was sleeping on the job. He didn't employ this person. And now all of a sudden you are here saying that Akufo Addo. What about Annan? Where was Annan? He was the minister in charge of
this. He used it on darko. He said he was paying people some money.
When you were talking, I allowed you to talk. So Annan was in charge of 1D1.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.